Welcome to Hancock's VMware Half Hour. And welcome back to another episode of Hancock's VMware Half Hour. Okay, well, in this video today, we're gonna sort of roll back in time, I suppose. In what we're gonna do, we're gonna look at home labs for VMware vSphere, or the VMware vSphere ESXi 8 Hypervisor, or VMware vCenter Server. Now, I know that there's an awful lot of VMware bashing going on at the moment. There's an awful lot of Broadcom bashing going on at the moment. A lot of people basically saying, go ProMox, go ProMox, go ProMox, etc., etc., etc. All I'm going to say to you is VMware vCenter Server 8 and VMware vSphere Hypervisor, or ESXi 8.03, is still available on the internet. All I'm going to say is seek and ye shall find. In fact, actually, that is a statement, I think, from the Pyramid of Doom, one of Scott International's adventure games from the 70s and the 80s. If you've ever done Pyramid of Doom, and seek and ye shall find is one of the comments that comes up a lot in that adventure game. So, as you probably know, or if you don't know, if you're new to watching Hancock's VMware Half Hour, I've been involved with VMware my entire career, to be honest with you. Okay, we did start off with server-based computing or thin client computing all those years ago. And then we slightly diversified into VMware. So we've been involved with VMware for 27 years. From the number of people that are subscribed to these videos and the number of people who are watching these videos, I still believe that there is mileage for VMware vSphere Hypervisor 7 and 8, and 9 is on the horizon. It's just basically gone into beta release. There are still plenty of jobs out there. Even if the end goal for a lot of people out there is to get off VMware because of what Broadcom is doing, etc., etc., they're still going to be with VMware for a few more years yet. And if the purpose, sole purpose of you watching these videos is for me to give you the information that is enough for you to put on your CV to go out and get a job and get an interview and get successful in a VMware position, then that's good enough for me. Anyway, so waffle out of the way. This video is going to be a little bit of a what if. Sadly, I could not capture, no matter what I did, off the VGA interface in today's video. So I'm going to show you what you need to do. But anyway, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is about home labs. I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't have a home lab. It's as simple as that. And I've had home labs since the 70s and the 80s. I've had servers that I can play with that are not in production, so that I can basically run what if scenarios. I can break them, I can repair them. That's how I've learned. I still have home labs today. I have an electricity bill in the UK to prove that. My electricity bill runs into literally 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 plus a year just running home labs. We have all sorts of home labs here in the office here. And, if you were to come into this, I think the first thing that you'd actually turn around and say is, good God, this is a man cave, because it is full of stacks of networking gear. It's full of stacks of servers in different states of array. A lot of those are obviously VMware, because that's what I do. But we look at all sorts of emerging technologies like XCP, like ProMox, like Zen, like Hyper-V, like Nutanix. It's all here. But we focus on this channel on VMware. Home labs are important because if you've got a bare metal home lab, you can experiment. Now, some of this can be done with virtualization. You could use VMware Workstation, and you could build homelab on VMware Workstation, but you're probably maybe going to be somewhat limited in some of the things maybe that you can do. Anyway, so today I thought we would go back to the very beginning. We would look at home labs, and I'm going to show you a server that is available now on the Bay. These can be purchased from recycling centers. They're cheap as chips, and interestingly, let me just bring this into view. They were or are being manufactured for Datto. Now, don't ask me why. I am a little bit surprised that we search for these servers. We get offered these servers a lot because we really, really like them. The servers themselves are manufactured for Datto. Datto is a cloud-based backup organization. As I said, I'm a little bit surprised that this one has actually arrived with the software on, which is a bit unusual. But I just actually basically wanted to show you that they go under the Datto brand. And this particular model is an S3 Papa, so Sierra number 3 Papa 4000. They are based on, if I just take that off for the moment and we get up the browser and we have a little look, the actual motherboard actually in them is an ASRock Rack motherboard. It's either a D1541D4U-2T8R or it's a D1541D4U-2T8R. The difference between those two, one has 10 gigabit SFP plus ports, the other has 10 gigabit RJ45 ports. So what we have here is a, let me just basically zoom in on that. What we have here is a D1541D4U-2T8R, which is 10 gigabit dual RJ45 type ports. It has 4 DIMM slots, which can accommodate 4 32 gig DIMMs, so it maxes out at 128 gig. It has 2 NVMe slots. It has an embedded processor or a SoC chip, which is based on a D1541, which has 8 cores. Yeah, okay, I know desktops probably have more cores today, but for a smallish home lab, 8 cores, 16 threads is going to work for you. We use them here a lot. We have a lot of these, and they work very well for us in the workloads that we use. And you've got 2 PCIe slots. So you've got a PCIe slot that can accommodate a GPU, and you've got another PCI slot as well. As I said, 2 NVMe slots. And if you actually manage to get hold of a Datto S3P4000, it already comes in a 1U ready-made server with a power supply. So realistically, all you have to do is apply power, put some disks on, put some NVMe on, and off you go with VMware vSphere Hypervisor 8.03. Sports UEFI and legacy boot. In the future, we're still going to start to see that the VMware vSphere Hypervisor 8 is going to start supporting UEFI only. So that really is going to throw out all your legacy boot options. I think they're an absolutely cracking motherboard. So what I'm actually going to show you is, as I said, these are ASRock Rack motherboards. They are OEM'd to Datto. Datto put them in a nice case. They configure them up. They create the wire trays inside them all nicely, etc. If you get one in a 1U chassis, you've got 4 external slots on the front that you can actually basically put disks in on using the disk trays, and you've got ample space inside basically to add 2 additional SATA disks as well. one of the things that you have to do, the ASRock Rack motherboard supports an AS speed. You can see it there at the top in the picture, hopefully. It has an AS speed BMC device. And I have actually basically noticed that when I've obtained these in the past, the BMC doesn't actually work properly. Don't worry, we can flash that. I can show you how to flash that. Or I'll give you the commands. I'm not going to reflash this again. This is what I was trying to capture through VGA to show you the entire process, but then sadly there was just no way that I could get VGA out into HDMI to capture it for you. But I can show you the commands. And of course, the other thing that we actually want to do is we actually want to replace the Datto BIOS with the stock ASRock BIOS. So I'm going to show you the commands to do that, and then we're going to move on. And we're going to take this server and then we're going to install ESXi 8.03, the latest version available. As I said to you before, seek and ye shall find. That's all I'm going to say. There are a lot of people that are asking me for links in the comments. You, of course, I have to be a little bit careful in providing those links to you in the comments and also in the videos, because if Broadcom complains against the channel, then YouTube will give me a strike. So people keep saying, you know, where are the links? Where are the links? Where are the links? All I'm going to say to you is seek and ye shall find. Okay, so what we're going to do, let's just turn that back on. I just wanted to show you that this particular server, for whatever reason, has actually basically come with the Datto software on it. I've no idea why. Usually they don't. I'm not too sure if whether or not this was actually basically missed by the recycling company that we've obtained this from. Anyway, so I've already fixed the BMC within this server. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the BMC basically to reset this server. So if you were to get one of these motherboards, if you were to get one of these servers, then there's no need to put a keyboard and a mouse on it, because you can drive it all remotely via BMC, which is the equivalent of ILO or iDRAC, and I think incredibly powerful. So we're just actually basically waiting for the server to boot. There you can see the BMC IP address 192.168.182.111, and I'm basically just going to press F11. There you can see that it's running the ASRock Rack firmware. This was originally running the BMC. This was originally running the Datto firmware. So I'm basically just going to boot off a USB stick that is actually basically running DOS. And in fact, actually, to be honest, already have gone wrong, because that's actually the wrong. Okay, that's the wrong. We'll come to that later. Let me just reset that server again. That was Ventoy that I use. I know a lot of people use Rufus. I think the big issue that I have with Rufus really is that you end up basically with one distro or one ISO burnt to one USB stick. I do like Ventoy because Ventoy gives me the ability to copy ISOs directly to Ventoy without any changes. Like when you use Rufus, Rufus does obviously basically extract the ISO to basically put on the USB flash drive. Right, let's just try that again. And it was the top one I had before, or the bottom one. So let's just try that. Okay, there we go. So this is just a DOS, free DOS, I think it is. This is just a free DOS boot disk that I'm using here. So I'm going to go dir. Okay, so the first thing that you want to do if you get hold of one of these motherboards, and I've done it the reverse of this, and it didn't work out so well, and I'll explain why. So there's a command called sockflash, and sockflash basically is the ASB sockflash utility that actually allows you basically to reprogram the BMC on board. And the latest version of the BMC, or the last version of BMC, is P16.0. So effectively, quite simply, you just basically do sock flash follow p16.ima space backup.back, enter, and give that about 30 minutes. Yes, 30 minutes. And that will basically then reflash your BMC. It will then restart the BMC, and then you will be able basically to connect to the server like I'm doing here. Now, the other command to actually replace the Datto BIOS with a new BIOS is actually a self-extracting EXE, which is called D1541D4U-2T8R, and you run that, and that actually basically will reflash the BIOS on the server's motherboard. Now, I reflashed the BMC, and for some strange reason, it wasn't actually basically picking up an IP address. And I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll restart this server, and we'll go into the BIOS, and I can show you. So I actually reflashed the BMC first, and then I was struggling basically to get a connection to the BMC port. And then I noticed it wasn't actually picking up an IP address. And I had no idea why it wasn't picking up an IP address. I'm just remembering here. I think it's F2 or delete, I think, to enter the BIOS. F2. So I'm just going to hit an F2. There we go, entering setup. So I flashed the BMC first. It wasn't actually basically picking up. So if I select here, if I go to server manager and I go for BMC network configuration, you can see here station IP address 192.168.182.111. But more importantly, the current MAC address. Now, I actually found that when I reflashed the BMC, the latest version of the BMC had been updated, but I didn't have a current MAC address. The current MAC address was set to 0, and I thought, well, that's not really a very good thing. You're never ever going to get an IP address, even static, assigned against a MAC address of 0. So then what I actually basically did then, I then updated the firmware on this to UEFI version D1541D4U-2T8R P1.3. And after I'd done that, I then noticed that the BMC network configuration was correct. It had a MAC address again, and I was able basically to obtain an IP address, and I was able actually to connect to the server. So here you can see that I'm running P1.3, which is the latest version available from ASRock Rack, and I'm running the BMC version of 16.00, which is also the latest version from ASRock Rack. If you're struggling to find those files, then drop me a message, and I can make them available to you. They were sent to me by ASRock Rack, and there was and they are freely available, and I don't believe that there are any restrictions that I have in passing on those particular files. And if you need further information on how to reflash your BMC and reflash your Datto BIOS to become an ASRock BIOS. So there's only one more thing for me to do. I'm going to go away at the end of this video, and I'm going to insert a Samsung NVMe 512 gigabyte stick. You may be able to see that possibly if I hold that there. And we're going to use that to install ESXi on. You may remember, of course, that installing ESXi to a USB flash drive or an SD card is no longer supported, no longer supported. It's deprecated. It's going to give you issues. So we're going to use one of the NVMe slots in this particular server, and I'm going to put that in, and later in the next video, I'm actually going to install ESXi 8.03 on that server. Then what we're going to do, because at the moment 8.03D is not available for download, the latest version of ESXi, that's not available as nice at the moment, so we're going to use the depot file, and we will update that as well. Or maybe we'll basically pull that down from the internet, but we'll update it as well, because I've got a few more surprises coming when hopefully some more NVMe sticks arrive today via Amazon. So there's one final change that I want to do, and I mentioned earlier that coming soon, the ESXi 8 will only be supporting UEFI going forward. So what I'm going to do in this particular server, because once we've actually finished installing this server, we will probably add it to one of our clusters somewhere. But we want to make it ready really for that change in the future. So I'm just going to just trying to find where the UEFI setting is. Definitely saw it before because I changed it to legacy boot. Let's go back to the beginning. Nope. Right, just let me pause this and let me find the I could just actually basically say load the defaults. Just one moment. Hey, there it is under CSM configuration. So I'm going to change this to UEFI only and UEFI only because I don't want to basically be doing any legacy boots in the future. And I'm going to save changes and exit. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to wait for that to restart. I'm going to let that boot into Ventoy. And then we'll pick up in another video on actually installing the VMware vSphere Hypervisor ESXi 8.03 onto this server. But of course, the first thing I've got to do is I've got to turn the power off to it, and I'm going to have to basically drop in this. So just let me basically enter this boot menu, F11. You know, I'm using a very, very strange keyboard, and sometimes I don't even know whether or not that I've actually got the right focus. That doesn't seem to have entered setup yet. Entering boot menu. Okay, so we're going to select. Now, as you can see, all those other options have actually basically disappeared now. So I think let's have a little look, see if we've actually basically going to pick Ventoy here. Server boot disabled. There we go. So this is my Ventoy options. And the reason, as I said, I use Ventoy is that it allows me to basically just copy ISOs directly to the USB flash drive with no modifications. Ventoy, when it boots, will just pick them up. And it basically will allow me to boot them. So if I basically just hit enter here, boot in normal mode, that basically is going to start booting the ESXi installer, and you can see there quite clearly that that was actually basically loading the UEFI config from the start. I don't know why we've all got an awful lot of gibberish there. That should say that's actually basically loading the drivers. I wonder whether or not that it's, I don't know. I've never ever seen that before. Hang on, let me just say refresh video. Nope. No idea. Here we go. So I don't know why. Maybe it was something to do with the UEFI config that was loading initially there. But you would have seen that before if you're installing ESXi onto a server. Okay, so I'm going to go away and power off this server. And I'm going to basically install that NVMe stick in. And then I will come back and we can do an installation to that NVMe stick. Anyway, so again, if you've enjoyed this video, then please give a thumbs up. If you don't like this video, then please give a thumbs down. But don't forget to subscribe and come back again for another VMware Hancock Half Hour. Goodbye now.